I never really had a huge obsession with anime till the pandemic started. I grew up watching a lot of anime, but I slowly lost interest as soon as I got older. But then the pandemic happened. I was isolated and left to my own thoughts and hobbies. So, what did I do? Well, I dived back into the world of anime. I browsed through Netflix and I watched almost everything. I watched stuff like Kakegiri, One Piece, The Abomination that was the Death Note movie, and then I saw Neon Genesis Evangelion. But I clicked away from it. It didn't seem appealing to me at all. Fast forwarding months later, the same anime appeared on my YouTube recommended, TikTok, and Instagram. I would see fan art of characters I have never met, cosplayers who put effort into something that they clearly resonated with. So that sparked my curiosity. I sat down on my chair and watched all of Evangelion on a summer day. The show starts just like any other mech show, but however slowly turns into a character drama about the everlasting change of the human mind. Whoa. And that was a shocking experience. While there are many good anime about mental health, like A Silent Voice or Arguably Your Name, I still never touched those. I only watched a lot of action anime and didn't think that something like anime could handle such a taboo topic. Evangelion managed to do that. Colorful robots and kids in equally colored suits faced issues that I could relate to. This was the one thing that introduced me to a whole new world of anime. Evangelion is very explicit and its messages are quite in your face, and I love that. I had such a narrow view of anime, I only thought it was just flashy characters fighting equally colorful villains, but man, I was wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong. When I watched this show and saw how serious and true to reality that depression and anxiety were portrayed in the show, I was very glad. It was a whole new experience, and quite frankly, I'm happy with that. I'm happy I made that decision. So, who created something that made me enjoy anime a lot more? Who made me have a whole new view on how the world operates and how artists' work reflect their feelings of the world? That would be Hideki Anno. This has been talked about a lot, but I do want to give some information about Anno for those of you who do not know. Hideki Anno is the director of Neon Genesis Evangelion, The End of Evangelion, Rebuild of Evangelion, and Evangelion Another Impact. Anno is the creator of the Evangelion story and wrote or co-wrote the script of almost every episode besides episode 4. He was one of the founding members of Gainax Anime Studio, and after End of Evangelion ended, Anno worked on another project called His and Her Circumstances, and later worked on several live-action films, and finally returned to Evangelion in 2006 with the formation of Studio Kara to produce the infamous Rebuild of Evangelion films. Eva has a lot of scenes that made me love the show a lot, and I can't just pick one and say this is the best scene of all time. It simply does not make any sense. It's always going to be multiple things that make me love something, and Evangelion is no exception to that rule. I knew a few things about Evangelion. I had a broad outline of the show's plot, and I knew a few of the themes that seemed to resonate with its fans. I knew the ending was, to put it lightly, controversial. But over the course of a month or so spent watching and digesting the series, one thing I had not known struck me repeatedly. Evangelion is full of long, static shots that are just single cells of animation. And I thought this was the best part of Eva. Consider a few examples. One episode opens with a shot of Misato, rendered as a silhouette, illuminated by spotlights, being interrogated by the faceless council of Seal. It lasts for around 70 seconds. Another episode spends several minutes holding on Rei and Asuka awkwardly ignoring each other in the elevator. And in perhaps the most infamous case, was one of the last episode features a shot of Shinji holding Karu in an enormous hand of Eva Unit 1, working through his new friend's request to be killed. Notably, all these three shots come from the last third of the series, episodes 17, 22, and 24. I was very confused as to why it happened. Why were there a lot of still frames for so long. It makes a lot more sense when knowing the production of Eva, which I did not know at the time. The production of Evangelion was notoriously fraught with studio running low on money to pay animators and time to finish the episodes on schedule, a crunch that only got worse towards the end. Beyond the ever-present pressure to meet deadlines in animation, there were issues that Anno had with himself, as well as the 1995 gas attack on the Tokyo subway, which forced Gainax to scrap some planned material. This video is more of a love letter than anything, but I want to mention one more thing I love about Evangelion and what makes it a masterpiece. I mean, yes, I just said that the still frames are peak fiction, but I'm allowed to have my opinion, so back off. But I had a very big appreciation for one certain thing though, that being the mech fights. Not necessarily because they were all animated or choreographed, though they were for sure, but I loved how they always make them feel like team efforts. In episode 11, there's a blackout in the base, meaning they can't activate the Evas like before. An angel would be the worst thing that could happen, so it does, of course. It seems hopeless for them. A spider angel is walking through the city and nothing can stop it, but there is still hope. Everyone works together to manually activate the Evas with a lot of hard work. And it shows how it's not just the pilots who have a role in defeating the angels, rather it is everyone. How the fights are never just punching the angels until they're dead, but there's an actual strategy to it. Like when they use all of Japan's electricity to shoot off a massive beam to an angel, or when they use an Eva as a bait, like fishing. It's always fascinating to see how the team would overcome a problem, and that was shocking from a mech show. After trying to digest the otherwise controversial ending, I stumbled upon the rebuilds of Evangelion, and I was presented with another question. Why in the absolute hell does this exist? Why would I want the same thing again? And I was wrong. Again, I kept judging the stuff that I don't even know. And man, did I not regret watching these. I love these films a lot. The rebuilds are amazing because it addresses one theme. It shows maturity. Before I go into depth, I can't really talk about any of these films without spoiling, so be warned. There are several major plot differences between Rebuild and the Eva TV show. The only plot difference between the first Rebuild film and the first 6 episodes of the show is the introduction of the seal base on the moon, and the early introduction of Karu on the audience, though not any of our characters. A setting difference is that the first impact poisoned the sea, turning it red, which wasn't on the show. In the second film, the plot diverges immediately. A new character, Makinami Mari, is introduced at the same time as Asuka. Also, future decaf here, as it turns out, she is 38 or 48. She's old, and in the fourth rebuild, she's a lot older. So, take that as you will. Back to the video. Most of the angel battles are cut, as we skip to the battle with Angel Zarel. Beast mode is finally introduced as a kind of artificially induced berserker mode. Most importantly, during the battle with this angel, Shinji and Rei initiate the third impact, and Karu appears with the Lance of Longinus to stall it. Everything after the beginning of the battle diverges significantly from the show to the point that the third film contains no scenes that correspond directly with the scenes from the show. When rewatching these rebuilds in anticipation for the final rebuild, I finally had a clear idea of what the purpose of the Evangelion show and the rebuilds were. The original Evangelion was the creation of a young man searching for answers. However, the rebuild of Evangelion builds onto that. It's the creation of an adult who has found those answers, who struggled so much to reach their ultimate goal. Evangelion with Love and Hate is a deeply personal work that acts as the emotional and philosophical autobiography of its creator, and that is beautiful. Thinking I was done with Evangelion, I came to another conclusion. Happiness changes a person. For Anno, writing the show was a way of dealing with his 4-year depression that haunted him. I am sure that most of us know the story. He was overcome with issues that can be seen in the characters and plot. The show in reality was a deeply emotional deconstruction of what he felt. He channeled deep fears, doubts, desires, sorrows, frustrations, regrets, hopes. This is what made the show all the more beautiful. There is the ever-present tension that characters face in order to overcome their brutal wounds. Ultimately, Evangelion the show is about what it means to be human, how one lives with these burdens. So back to what I was saying. Happiness changes a person. The rebuilds of Evangelion do something quite unique among remakes. There are return to the original, but instead of making small technical updates like new Star Wars trilogy, or completely reimagining the story like Planet of the Apes, they present the same basic plot as the original, but the characters make slightly better choices this time around. The original Evangelion was noted for its emotional intense situations, filled with characters who often act out of fear, selfishness, and resentment. The rebuilds, however, show these same characters in the exact same situation, but they're ever so slightly more patient and understanding, and eventually compassionate towards one another. It starts off very subtle with barely perceptible differences between the original and the remake, but eventually these small changes snowball into a very different story with different situations as a result of characters who are slightly more mature and capable of a broader range of actions. In the end, Neon Genesis Evangelion is both a psychological drama and a mech show, and it does both so well. And while I have many problems with the show, like a few lines, I think Evangelion is an amazing show that opened a whole new world of anime that I never bothered to touch. And for that, thank you, Evangelion.